Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Exploring the Advent of Divine Justice. We are on part 24, part 3, covering paragraphs 116 through 124. And without any further ado, we'll have our opening prayer. Thank you. O God, my God, I beg of thee by the ocean of thy healing, and by the splendors of the day star of thy grace, and by thy name through which thou didst subdue thy servants, and by the pervasive power of thy most exalted word and the potency of thy most august pen, and by thy mercy that hath preceded the creation of all who are in heaven and on earth, to purge me with the waters of thy bounty from every affliction and disorder, and from all weakness and feebleness. Thou seest, O my Lord, thy suppliant waiting at the door of thy bounty, and him who hath set his hopes on thee, clinging to the cord of thy generosity. Deny him not, I beseech thee, the things he seeketh from the ocean of thy grace, and the day star of thy loving kindness. Powerful art thou to do what pleaseth thee. There is none other God save thee, the ever forgiving, the most generous. Baha'u'llah. Well, dear friends, welcome back. As I was reading this prayer of healing, I was reminded of a wonderful compilation I came across. And there's a line in it, it says, clinging to the cord. And it reminds, the long healing prayer. This is clinging to the hem of all that hath been and all that will be, right? There's a compilation that an individual has done on this aspect of clinging to the cord. And it's so many times in the writings. And it's a wonderful compilation showing, and I'll send it to the class because it's pretty cool. And it shows how many times His Holiness Baha'u'llah, Abdul Baha, and the beloved guardian reference this, and that it actually also comes from the Bible. And it's really cool. I mean, how the commonality of language, clinging to the cord of all that have been and all that will be. And so it's a very nice compilation that has been done. Okay, let us get into our study for today. Very excited, dear friends. So last time we saw that clip that I put together on the unappreciated president, Woodrow Wilson. And how cool was that to see how amazing this president is or was, and what a history that also many of us, well, especially me, was not aware of, especially because it's not taught in the schools and taught in. So we saw that clip. And so now I wanted to share, because we saw that clip on Unappreciated President, I sent this to the class, but I wanted to share it with everyone on the recording. So I came across this article in Star of the West, and this was an address by Woodrow Wilson himself. And this was shared in Star of the West itself, which is the Baha'i publication. So this is an address by Woodrow Wilson, the President of the United States, before 4,000 people, newly admitted citizens at Philadelphia, May 10th, 1915. And the title of that talk was, "The Example of America Must Be a Special Example." So this is the unappreciated president. That's a quote from actually Abdul Baha, quoted in Advent of Divine Justice, So I'm going to read this because it might be a little small for our friends in our class. So let me read this. Okay. The example of America must be a special example. address by Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, before 4,000 newly admitted citizens at Philadelphia, May 10th, 1950. It warms my heart that you should give me such a reception, but it is not of myself that I wish to think tonight, but of those who have just become citizens of the United States. This is the only country in the world which experiences this constant and repeated rebirth. This country is constantly drinking strength out of new sources by the voluntary association with it of great bodies of strong men and forward-looking women. And so by the gift of the free will of independent people, it is constantly being renewed from generation to generation by the same process by which it was originally created. It is as if humanity had determined to see to it that this great nation, founded for the benefit of humanity, should not lack for the allegiance of the people of the world. You have just taken an oath of allegiance to the United States. Of allegiance to whom? Of allegiance to no one, unless it be to God. Certainly not of allegiance to those who temporarily represent this great government. You have taken an oath of allegiance to a great ideal, to a great body of principles, to a great hope of the human race. You have said, we are going to America not only to earn a living, not only to seek the things which it was more difficult to obtain where we were born, but to help forward the great enterprises of the human spirit. To let men know that everywhere in the world there are men who will cross strange oceans and go where a speech is spoken which is alien to them, knowing that whatever the speech there is, but one longing and utterance of the human heart, and that it is for liberty and justice. And while you bring all countries with you, you come with a purpose of leaving all other countries behind you, bringing what is best of their spirit, but not looking over your shoulders and seeking to perpetuate what you intended to leave in them. I certainly would not be one even to suggest that a man cease to love the home of his birth and the nation of his origin. These things are sacred and ought not to be put out of our hearts. But it is one thing to love the place where you were born, and it is another thing to dedicate yourself to the place to which you go. You cannot dedicate yourself to America unless you become in every respect and with every purpose of your will through thorough Americans. You cannot become thorough Americans if you think of yourselves in groups. America does not consist of groups. A man who thinks of himself as belonging to a particular national group in America has not yet become an American. And the man who goes among you to trade upon your nationality is no worthy son to live under the stars and stripes. My urgent advice to you would be not only always to think first of America, but always also to think first of humanity. You do not love humanity if you seek to divide humanity into jealous camps. Humanity can be welded together only by love, by sympathy, by justice, not by jealousy and hatred. I am sorry for the man who seeks to make personal capital out of the passions of his fellow men. He has lost the touch and ideal of America, for America was created to unite mankind by those passions which lift and not by the passions which separate and debase. We came to America either ourselves or in persons of our ancestors, to better the ideals of men, to make them see finer things than they had seen before, to get rid of things that divide and to make sure of the things that unite. It was but an historical accident, no doubt, that this great country was called the United States, and yet I am thankful that it has the word united in its title. And the man who seeks to divide man from man, group from group, interest from interest in the United States is striking at its heart. It is an interesting circumstance to me in thinking of those of you who have just sworn allegiance to this great government, that you were drawn across the ocean by some beckoning finger of hope, by some belief, by some vision of a new kind of justice, by some expectation of a better kind of life. No doubt you have been disappointed in some of us. Some of us are disappointing. No doubt you have found that justice in the United States goes only with a pure heart and a right purpose, as it does everywhere else in the world. No doubt what you found here did not seem touched for you. After all, with the complete beauty of the ideal which you had conceived beforehand. No doubt you have been disappointed in some of us. Some of us are disappointing. No doubt you have found that justice in the United States goes only with a pure heart. Oh, that's a repeat. Sorry about that. But remember this, if you had grown at all poor in the ideal, you brought some of it with you. A man does not go out to seek the thing that is not in him. A man does not hope for the thing that he does not believe in. And if some of us have forgotten what America believed in, you, at any rate, imported in your own hearts a renewal of the belief. I was born in America. You dreamed dreams of what America was to be, and I hope you brought the dreams with you. No man that does not see visions will ever realize any hope, any high hope of undertake, any high enterprise. Just because you brought dreams with you, America is more likely to realize the dreams such as you brought. You are enriching us if you came expecting us to be better than we are. Roya John, if you could read some, that would be great.
Sure. See, my friends, what that means, it means that Americans must have consciousness different from the consciousness of every other nation in the world. I'm not saying this with even the slightest thought of criticism of other nations. You know how it is with a family. A family gets centered on itself if it is not careful, and it is less interested in the neighbors than it is in its own members. So a nation that is not constantly renewed out of new sources is apt to have the narrowness and prejudice of a family. Whereas America must have this consciousness that on all sides it touches elbows and touches hearts with all the nations of mankind. The example of America must be a special example. The example of America must be the example not merely of peace, because it will not fight, but of peace, because peace is the healing and elevating influence of the world, and strife is not. There is such a thing as a man being too proud to fight. There is such a thing as a nation being so right that it does not need to convince others by force that it is right. So if you come into this great nation, as you have come voluntarily, seeking something that we have to give, all that we have to give is this. We cannot exempt you from work. No man is exempt from work anywhere in the world. I sometimes think he is fortunate if he has to work only with his hands and not with his head. It's easy to do what other people give you to do, but it's difficult to give other people things to do. We cannot exempt you from work. We cannot exempt you from the strife and the heartbreaking burden of the struggle of the day that is common to mankind everywhere. We cannot exempt you from the loads that you must carry. We can only make them light by the spirit in which they are carried. That is the spirit of hope. It is the spirit of liberty. It's the spirit of justice. When I was asked, therefore, by the mayor and the committee that accompanied him to come up from Washington to meet this great company of newly admitted citizens, I could not decline the invitation. I ought not to be away from Washington, and yet I feel that it has renewed my spirit as an American. In Washington, men tell you so many things every day that are not so. And I like to come and stand in the presence of a great body of my fellow citizens, where they have been my fellow citizens a long time or a short time, and drink, as it were, out of the common fountain with them, and go back feeling that you have so generously given me the sense of your support and of the living vitality in your hearts, of its great ideals which made America the hope of the world.
Beautifully read, Roya-Jan. Thank you. So what a remarkable address by President Woodrow Wilson to these newly admitted citizens, May 10th, 1915. And it was such a powerful address that it was captured here in Star of the West. And this is the publication, the volume 6, March 21st, 1915. So why did I want to bring this up is because here we mentioned, how many times did we read in our last section? This is from Abdu'l-Baha's tablet. Dr. Wilson is indeed serving the kingdom of God, for he is restless, strives day and night, that the rights of all men may be preserved, safe, and secure. So how many times did we read this? Addresses, the immortal President Woodrow Wilson must be ascribed this unique honor. So I wanted to share when in paragraph, I believe it was paragraph, let me jump to it, sorry. It was paragraph 119 off the top of my head. I'm just pulling it up, where it talks about this President Woodrow Wilson. It's in paragraph 100. Here it is. The efforts of those gravitating with the community leaders. I found it. Paragraph 119, I believe it was. The Great Republic. Yes, right here. So this, I believe it was it's also addressing this federalism underlying the government and the Wilsonian ideals of the unappreciated president. So it's at the end of paragraph 119. So it says the ideals that fire the imagination of America's tragically unappreciated president, whose high endeavors, however much, nullified by a visionless generation. So this was a tie-in. I wanted to address his ideals. And it's not just the 14 points that was part of the bringing about of the League of Nations, but it was also addressing that. What else did he say? Because this was all part of his influence coming from the faith, and this was an incredible thing. And also, I wanted to share. I believe in. Yeah, I also sent that to the class where it says that we can't ascribe everything that he said, even that it came from the faith. That was also from the Beloved Guardian. So that was a quote from the Beloved Guardian. So moving on, I wanted to tie all of this to paragraph 10. Okay, so in paragraph 120, I'm just going to read the opening of paragraph 120 and then tie it back to paragraph 10, which was way on early on in this course. So paragraph 120, it says that the world is beset with perils, that dangers are now accumulating and are actually threatening the American nation. No clear-eyed observer can possibly deny. The earth is now transformed into an armed camp. As much as 50 million men are either under arms or in reserve. No less than the sum of 3 billion pounds is being spent in 1 year on its armaments. The light of religion is dimmed and moral authority disintegrating. The nations of the world have, for the most part, fallen a prey to battling ideologies that threaten to disrupt the very foundations of their dearly won political unity. Agitated multitudes in these countries seethe with discontent, are armed to the teeth, are stampeded with fear, and groan beneath the yoke of tribulations engendered by political strife, racial fanaticism, national hatreds, and religious animosities. I'm just going to read just a little bit more. It says, the winds of despair. The winds of despair. This is a quote from Baha'u'llah. It says, the winds of despair, Baha'u'llah has unmistakably affirmed, are alas blowing from every direction, and the strife that divides and afflicts the human race is daily increasing. The signs of impending convulsions and chaos can now be discerned. So this, I just reading up to that point, and then it talks about the Balkans and the conflagration that is coming up in, as this is December 25th, 1938, right? And as you know, 9 months later, World War II started. So I tie this to paragraph 10. In paragraph 10, it says, a world torn with conflicting passions and perilously disintegrating from within finds itself confronted at so crucial an epoch in its history by the rising fortunes of an infant faith, a faith that at times seems to be drawn into its controversies, entangled by its conflicts, eclipsed by its gathering shadows, overpowered by the mounting tides of its passions. In its very heart, within its cradle, at the seat of its first and venerable temple, in one of its hitherto flourishing and potentially powerful centers, the as yet unemancipated faith of Baha'u'llah seems indeed to have retreated before the onrushing forces of violence, disorder to which humanity is steadily falling a victim. The strongholds of such a faith, one by one and day after day, are to outward seeming being successively isolated. Remember, we're talking about isolationism, which was the policy of the country. So even the faith is becoming isolated as an effect of the society's impacts. So it says, even as the lights of liberty flicker and go out, as the din of discord grows louder and louder every day, as the fires of fanaticism, here's the second time, fanaticism, we just read paragraph 120, was racial fanaticism, the flame with increasing fierceness in the breasts of men, as the chill of irreligion creeps relentlessly over the soul of mankind, the limbs and organs that constitute the body of the faith of Baha'u'llah appear in varying measure to have become afflicted with the crippling influences that now hold in their grip the whole of the civilizing world. So this tiny faith, like a beautiful little flower, is getting entrenched and entrapped by the weeds, the carnivorous weeds that are encircling it. And this flower is just trying to emerge, but it's getting entrapped, enmeshed by the crumbling down of the present day society. This is, so this was the disintegration within. These were some past slides. I wanted to tie this in because ties directly to paragraph 120, talking about this society breakdown. This is to refresh you. The beloved guardian refers to the effect of the Baha'i cause of this world's degeneration, an effect that becomes more and more evident as these lights of liberty flicker and go out. This din of discord is growing louder and louder every day. And as the fires of fanaticism flame with an increasing fierceness in the breasts of men, and as the chill of irreligion creeps relentlessly over the soul of mankind. I was thinking the other day, I was like, humanity is just going to get worse and worse. And His Holiness Abdul Baha says this, Baha'u'llah says this. And I was thinking, it would get better if they knew what the solution was. But it's just like a child. If they don't know how to get better, they're just going to make mistakes and continue to make mistakes. And because of humanity's greed and all of the other issues and problems that go along with devices, they're just going to continue to make greater mistakes. And the problems, just like a sickness, is going to get worse and worse, and more problems are going to compound. And that's why it's going to get ever worse, because they don't know what the solution is. They don't know where to turn. And that's why it's these two processes at work. Our work is to present the solution to the humanity. So we got to work on the solution. We have the solution, but we have to work internally to build our institutions as well as to teach. This is which is the minor plan. The greater plan is the major plan is the plan of God that is breaking down all of these old institutions and everything. So the Baha'i community has been drawn into the controversies of the old world order. This is what the beloved guardian is saying. We've been drawn into, we've been entrapped in its conflicts. And the Baha'i community is being overshadowed by the darkness surrounding it and overcome by its increasing passions. So we have to be such a light that the darkness doesn't enter. And I found this such a cool quote. And this was in, every so often, I sit on Netflix and I just watch 20 episodes. And there was one Netflix series that I was watching, and it had a really cool quote, and I saved it on my phone just to share with you guys. So this was a quote that started off in the show. It says, "Even the thickest darkness disappears with the faintest light." Isn't that cool? Even the thickest darkness disappears with the faintest light. And what are we, dear friends? We are Baha'i. We're Baha'is, followers of the light. So we should be light. So if the thickest darkness, the most terrible of situations and problems and the most hateful situations that surround us, if we even have the faintest light within our heart, we should be able to dispel even the thickest of darkness, because Baha'u'llah has entered our hearts. And we should be light. I thought that quote was cool. So that's why I wanted to share it with you, that through everything that we've talked so far about transformation of character, that we become light incarnate. We become lamps of God. And so through our actions, our words, our deeds, our behaviors, and then our speech, right? That we literally are giving off light to the thickest of darkness and changing that darkness into light. So now moving onto paragraph 120 that we just started to read. The beloved guardian identifies the dangers that are threatening the world at that point in time. And in particular, 50 million men were either in military service or in the reserves. They were just gearing up for World War II. He's saying the world spent 3 billion pounds 1938, that's probably an astronomical figure. I'm not into conversions and based upon, in 1938, how much 3 billion pounds is probably in the trillions, I would guess, but it's an astronomical figure of what 3 billion pounds is. The light of religion was dimmed and moral authority was breaking up. The world nations had become victims to battling ideologies, threatening their political unity. And the citizens of countries were discontented with politics, armed to the teeth, and were stampeded with fear, groaned beneath the yoke of tribulations engendered by political strife, racial fanaticism, national hatreds, and religious animosities. So this is just the beloved guardian, like this awesome sociologist, seeing what the problems of the world in 1938 are, right? He's looking at it from the top, as they say. So he's surveying what is going on in the climate. And this is at the very end, paragraph 116. And one of my favorite openings of any paragraph. One more word in conclusion, right? I love that. And so he's now surveying all of the climatic problems around the world. And these, he's letting the Baha'i community know that these events are gearing up for something incredibly tumultuous. So he's giving his warning. And this is the slide that I wanted to share that was in part 3. And remember, if you go back to paragraph 6 through 11 in Advent to Divine Justice, you will see how paragraph 6 through 11 tie into paragraph 120 and talking about these impending convulsions. So this quote is actually in paragraph 120. And I shared that in paragraph, when we were studying paragraph 10. So this is from the gleanings from the writings of Baha'u'llah. It says, His Holiness Baha'u'llah had discerned the signs of the convulsions and warned humanity. So this is in paragraph 120. It says, the winds of despair are alas blowing from every direction, and the strife that divideth and afflicteth the human race is daily increasing. The signs of impending convulsions and chaos can now be discerned, inasmuch as the prevailing order appeareth to be lamentably defective. I beseech God, exalted be his glory, that he may graciously awaken the peoples of the earth, may grant that the end of their conduct may be profitable unto them, and aid them to accomplish that which beseemeth their station. So the current order, the prevailing order, that's why, in the writings, it's called the old world order, and we have this new world order being unfurled. The old world order is, in the words of His Holiness Baha'u'llah, is what? Appeareth lamentably defective. It ain't working. Lamentably means profoundly sad, right? Defective means it ain't working. It's not functioning. So this current order that is operating in the world is not working. So this is the current crisis. These winds of despair blowing from every direction. So carrying on. So such warnings were connected with this looming Second World War. The beloved guardian cites and his utterances from His Holiness Baha'u'llah to indicate that these convulsions experienced at that time were prophesied by Baha'u'llah. He also cites a statement from Abdul Baha, revealed in January 1920, in which he makes a number of prophecies about the chaos that would surround humanity. So the ills from which the world now suffers will multiply. The gloom which envelops it will deepen. The Balkans will remain discontented. Its restlessness will increase. The vanquished powers will continue to agitate. They will resort to every measure that may rekindle the flame of war. Movements, newly born and worldwide in their range, will exert their utmost for the advancement of their designs. The movement of the left will acquire great importance. Its influence will spread. So we're going to examine what all of these are, so you'll have a better understanding, okay? So in this one, it says the Balkans will remain discontented. Its restlessness will increase. So the Balkans, also known as the Balkan Peninsula, it consists of 3 southern peninsulas in the easternmost areas of Europe. This area has been fighting forever. I mean, this is where World War I started, and this is where World War II really also was, that's the beloved guardian, it said it was discontented. This is an area of Europe, in the easternmost parts of Europe. The area is now divided up into Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Croatia, Kosovo, Macedonia, the Republic of Montenegro, Romania, Serbia, Slovenia, and portions of Greece and Turkey. This area keeps breaking up. You see how many times it's been broken up, different countries? Because of conflict, wars. All of these countries have so many different diversity of inhabitants, different religions, different cultures, different peoples, and they are constantly at each other's throats in this region of the world. That's why the beloved guardian says the Balkans, the Balkans will remain discontented. Its restlessness will increase. So even here, look at what has happened and what atrocities. I mean, it's very easy to look up what has happened in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the massacres that has happened even in recent times. Not even talking about World War II. I'm talking, in the last 20 years. This is incredible atrocities have happened in these regions because the Balkans remain discontented, as the beloved guardian says. These are a region of the earth and population that are war hungry. There's peoples that are battling. They really are battling with each other in the name of religion, in the name of, and they're not only have such levels of disunity between the groups, all the different subgroups. They have racist, their racial hatreds, class hatreds, all throughout the Balkans, and all from Bosnia hating the Croatians hating the Bosnians, and the Slovenians, the Montenegro is a relatively recent country that has emerged. And all of this was Yugoslavia at one time. So there's all of these hatreds have emerged, and that this is why it all broke up. And there's still such hatreds throughout this region. So the beloved, this is in Abdul Baha in Egypt. So in Abdul Baha in Egypt, it says, what is your opinion about Turkey and the Balkan War? This is an interesting question. So I wanted to include it in this presentation. So this is Abdul Baha speaking. He says, we have nothing to do with war. We are advocates of peace. Speak to us about the conditions of peace. Go to the diplomatists and militarists and ask their opinions about this war. But as regards peace in the world of humanity, there is no more important affair, no weightier cause. It is conducive to the well-being of the world of creation, the means of the prosperity of nations, the reason of eternal friendship between peoples, the cause of solidarity between the East and the West, the promoter of real freedom, and the most eminent favor of His Highness, the Almighty. We must always strive to upraise the flag of international peace, the oneness of the world of humanity, and the spiritual brotherhood of mankind. So that was a very interesting address. When someone asked him about the conditions of war, he says, I have nothing to do with war. Why should I speak about war? I want to speak about peace. It's like someone asking you to speak about darkness, and you're like, why should I speak about darkness? I want to speak about the light. And that is because light is a real thing. Darkness is the absence of light. So he says, I want to speak about the real thing. Let's talk about light. So carrying on about these impending convulsions, and this is a message dated from our beloved guardian, dated 4th June 1947. So he says, this is in Citadel of Faith, by the way. The beloved guardian states, the agitation in the Balkan Peninsula, and I've put a map here. I wanted you to know regionally what this Balkan Peninsula is. The agitation in the Balkan Peninsula, the feverish activity in which Germany and Italy played a disastrous role, culminating in the outbreak of the Second World War, the rise of the fascist and Nazi movements, which spread their ramifications to distant parts of the globe, the spread of communism, which as a result of the victory of Soviet Russia in that same war has been greatly accelerated. All these happenings, some unequivocally, others in veiled language, have been forecast in this tablet, the full force of whose implications are as yet undisclosed, and which we may well anticipate the American nation as yet insufficiently schooled by adversity. I love this part. This American nation, as yet insufficiently schooled by adversity, meaning that we got to be schooled more in adversity. That's what it's saying. Must sooner or later experience. So it means that our American nation is insufficiently schooled in adversity. So we will experience much, much greater problems and challenges. So in this extract here, the beloved guardian, this a letter, is saying, addressing the Balkan Peninsula. And this is in 1947, obviously. This is a good 9 years after Advent to Divine Justice. But I wanted to include this because here the beloved guardian is addressing his letter to America, as well as talking about, and we're now 2 years after the end of World War II. So as you know, it ended in 1945, but he wanted to address the disastrous play and role of Nazism, the fascism movements that affected this Balkan Peninsula, as well as also very interestingly, if you recall, the movement of the left will acquire great importance. Its influence will spread. That was one of them, right? So in here, the spread of communism, which as a result of the victory of Soviet Russia in that same war has been greatly accelerated. Movement of the left. So we're going to be, that will also come up again. So the statement of the beloved guardian indicates that the vanquished powers is a reference to Germany and Italy. So it's when it talks about these vanquished powers. And the newly born movements are fascism and Nazism, and the movement of the left is referring to communism. So this is what this addresses mean in this extract. So moving on, now we're continuing in paragraph 120. In the remaining part of paragraph 120, it says the voice of its president. So I want to pull it actually so we can read it from the text and then tie it into this study, because you'll gain a greater appreciation to the presentation. It says, as to the American nation itself, this is on page 134 of this one, right at the bottom. It says, as to the American nation itself, the voice of its own president, emphatic and clear, warns his people that a possible attack upon their country has been brought infinitely closer by the development of aircraft and by other factors. Its Secretary of State, addressing at a recent conference the assembled representatives of all the American republics, utters no less ominous warnings. And it says these resurgent forces loom threateningly throughout the world. Their ominous shadows falls athwart our own hemisphere. So this is, I just wanted to tie this in. So it says in the remaining part of the paragraph 120, the voice of its president is a reference to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was elected in 1933. And he served 4 terms as the president of the United States until his death in 1945. And the Secretary of State mentioned in that paragraph 120 says its Secretary of State addressing at a recent conference is to this gentleman, Secretary of State Cordell Hull. And this was his lifespan from 1871 to 1955. And he served in that position for 11 years. In paragraphs 121 through 124, so now we're getting to the last paragraphs in Advent, is now addressing this future destiny of America, the future as well as the destiny of America. The beloved guardian Shaykh Effendi states that it is rather difficult to identify the exact course that the American nation will follow in the coming years. It is, however, possible to anticipate the direction it will follow in its relationship with its neighbors and other parts of the world. A closer relationship with its neighbors and greater involvement in world affairs will be unavoidable. Remember how many times the beloved guardian says, he said that this isolationism type of policy cannot stand. He says that you will have to have a closer relationship with your neighbors and greater involvement in their world affairs. So I found this wonderful extract. And so this is extract, this is coming from paragraph 123. So it says the world shaking ordeal. Okay, so I'm going to get one of our dear friends to read this. Let me ask our dear Miss Luann if she could kindly read this one for us.
The world shaking ordeal, which Baha'u'llah, as quoted in the foregoing pages, has so graphically prophesied, may find it, the American nation, swept to an unprecedented degree into its vortex. Out of it will probably emerge, unlike its reactions to the last world conflict, consciously determined to seize its opportunity to bring the full weight of its influence to bear upon the gigantic problems that such an ordeal must leave in its wake, and to exercise forever in conjunction with its sister nations of both the East and the West, the greatest curse which from time immemorial has afflicted and degraded the human race. Shoghi Effendi.
Beautifully read, Ms. Luann. Thank you. All right. So this is the extract from paragraph 123, a world-shaking ordeal. And this is in reference to the conflict, World War II. And it's been so graphically prophesied by His Holiness Baha'u'llah. So just wanted to put that in front of your eyes. And here again in Citadel of Faith, it says, as the fabric of present day society heaves and cracks under the strain and stress of portentous events and calamities, as the fissures accentuating the cleavage separating nation from nation, class from class, race from race, and creed from creed multiply, the prosecutors of the plan must evince a still greater cohesion in their spiritual lives and administrative activities, and demonstrate a higher standard of concerted effort, of mutual assistance, and of harmonious development in their collective enterprises. Wow. God, I love that language. So awesome. So here the beloved guardian, one paragraph, one extract is saying, as the world is just getting worse. This is such an awesome quote. And this is something that you should save. As the world is just getting worse, present day society heaves and cracks. It's just like you're putting tension on something and it's just getting cracks, and eventually just more and more cracks are happening. This is what is happening of the world. And as race is separating from race and class is from class, and as this is multiplying, the prosecutors of this plan, namely the Baha'i community, and the plan is the lesser plan, the Baha'i community advancing this lesser plan. What should they do? They should have evince a greater cohesion in their spiritual lives, administrative activities, demonstrate higher standard of concerted effort. This word effort, I think, is 5 times in Advent of Divine Justice and is one of the most common words in the writings of the beloved guardian is the word effort. Because that is something that we have to evince, we have to do. It has to be synonymous. Effort is synonymous to being a Baha'i. If you call yourself a Baha'i and you're not evincing effort, how can you call yourself a Baha'i? Effort is synonymous with a Baha'i. So he's saying, the beloved guardian is saying, this effort should be concerted effort. It's not just an effort. Remember, in Advent to Divine Justice, the words that go with effort are supreme effort. And this is in paragraph, off the top of my head, 52, I believe, where the beloved guardian is talking on racial efforts and talking about let the white make a supreme effort. Then as talking to the African Americans, says let the Negro make a corresponding effort, right? So supreme effort, corresponding effort. It means also corresponding means the similar type of effort, supreme effort. So corresponding effort meaning to the supreme effort. So supreme effort, corresponding effort. Another effort is mentioned is tremendous effort. So it's another tie. So those are 3 off the top of my head. And in the latest message of our National Spiritual Assembly, forging a path to racial justice, And I encourage you to read these messages so well that you have it up here, I believe. And in forging a path to racial justice, in that message, the Supreme Body, the National Spiritual Assembly says, we should make a concerted effort. Where is that concerted effort here? Boom, it's right in the message of the beloved guardian. So all of these types of effort is concerted effort, means it's not just, oh, I just did, I remember last year I participated in the Martin Luther, King celebration, and I held the sign and I walked down and I support racial justice. That's what our community did. Is that concerted effort, or is that concerted effort only in February when it's the Martin Luther King's birthday? Or what are you doing as a community, as an individual, as a family in the path of racial justice? Concerted effort in the sense of what are you doing as a Baha'i holistically in all things? Are you, working in your inner life and private character? And are you also working on your, raising the capacity of your knowledge base so that your speech will be refined. So when opportunities arise, that your speech will affect the heart. So these are talking about creating a concerted effort. And then even further is, you say, I haven't met anyone that I can teach the faith to, but are you making a concerted effort to go out and create new spheres, new contacts and potential, people to connect with? Are you making that concerted effort? Is teaching your dominating passion? Or are you just always saying, I pray for teaching. I'm always praying for teaching. Not that that's bad, but what are you making that concerted effort to do? Because remember, we even studied when it said prayer should be followed by action, right? It's not just pray. It should be followed by action and as if your prayer has been answered. So these are just some thoughts for the class to ponder on. And this is also here in the last world order letter. The last world order letter. This was in 1934 off the top of my head. The unfoldment of world civilization. This is there's an extract and it says, we stand on the threshold of an age whose convulsions proclaim alike the death pangs of the old order and the birth pangs of the new. What beautiful language. We stand on the threshold of an age whose convulsions proclaim alike the death pangs of the old order and the birth pangs of the new. This is what the beloved guardian is saying, is this old world order is dying. It is collapsing. It is clawing to survive. It's clawing, and it's like when you put your fingernails against the blackboard, and it sounds horrible and it's painful, and that's how it's going. And it's just painful, and it's the death pangs. They're like trying to hold on. And this new world order is also painful too. And this is the birth pangs, because birth is a painful process. And so this is also a process of the maturation of the institutions, as well as also how the individual is also undertaking their own tests and challenges, learning how to teach, learning this culture that is being unfolded by our supreme body. The institute process is a complete new culture, and many have not even embraced it or have not even immersed themselves in it. So this is a culture, and that we have to not only accept it and lovingly embrace it, because this is part and parcel of the unfoldment of the divine plan. And we're going to see this coming up in dispensation of Baha'u'llah. So that's going to be something, a treat. So I wanted to share this cool quote because we're all still in a COVID pandemic. So this is from the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Gutierrez. He says, the world is at a breaking point. This pandemic has been likened to an X-ray, revealing fractures in the fragile skeleton of the societies we have built. It is exposing fallacies and falsehoods everywhere. The lie that free markets can deliver healthcare for all, the fiction that unpaid care work is not work, the delusion that we live in a post-racist world, the myth that we are all in the same boat, because while we are all floating on the same sea, it's clear that some are in super yachts, while others are clinging to the floating debris. What an insightful and clever quote from this UN Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez. So he's saying the world is at a breaking point. He is perceptive to see that this world is in crisis. And he was just referencing this pandemic. Now think about, the world is going to get worse every day, and this pandemic may just be one of a myriad of different crises that will continue to eventually bring this world to closer and closer together, to see that it is impossible for humanity to try to stay separated, that we as a species, we as a humanity have to work together. Whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a war, whether it's racialism, nationalism, whether it's any one of these problems, we have to come together and solve them together. And the first way that they'll be solving them is on the political front, and that is when the countries come together. This will be called the lesser peace. So this will be the first stage, and the beloved guardian references that in the World Order of Baha'u'llah, and says that even though they may be unaware of the revelation of Baha'u'llah, this coming together will bring about the establishment of the lesser peace. So here's another wonderful quote from His Holiness Abdul Baha. It says, the continent of America, because we're talking about the destiny of America in the last paragraphs, 120 through 124 of Advent. So I'm tying some of these quotes on this destiny of America. The continent of America is in the eyes of the one true God, the land wherein the splendors of his light shall be revealed, where the mysteries of his faith shall be unveiled, where the righteous will abide and the free assemble. So this is the destiny of America. And here again, I will get our next reader, Miss Darla. Miss Darla, if you could read this one for us. Miss Darla, could you unmute yourself? Are you with us? She may have stepped away. Miss Yuda, could you read this one for us? Don't forget to unmute yourself. There you go.
America has become renowned for her discoveries, inventions, and artistic skill, famous for equity of government and stupendous undertakings. Now may she also become noted and celebrated as the herald and messenger of universal peace. Abdul Baha.
Beautifully read. Thank you, Miss Yuda. So yes, an incredible country, United States of America. And I love that address from Woodrow Wilson, where he was insightful to reference the word united that this is United States of America. So this is, as a country, something that we should strive towards, to be united as a people. As Baha'is, we should be united as a community. We should be united in our undertakings. So this is here. And so this is, as Baha'is, we should be noted and celebrated as a herald for universal peace. So very simply, I mean, in our talks, in our firesides, in our gatherings, our common theme should be peace. These are one of the things that we should talk about. And if you look up promulgation of universal peace, the talks of Abdul Baha, or the talks of Abdul Baha in Europe, which would be Paris talks, or Abdul Baha in London, or any of these places, one of the most common subjects of His Holiness Abdul Baha was peace. So this should be a common subject as Baha'is we should speak on, is the subject of peace. And so this is something that we should talk often about, the importance of bringing about peace. So let us now get into this next few slides I have here on the destiny of America. Okay, and Riaz John, if you could kindly read this slide for us.
Still, the destiny of America. Setbacks and delays will occur, but the evolution of this great nation towards its spiritual destiny will, as foretold in the prophecies of Abdul Baha, it will continue until the time when America assumes a leading role in the peaceful settlement of the affairs of mankind and attains its station as an outstanding member of a federal world.
Thank you, Riaz John. Beautifully read. Beautiful. So this great American nation will overcome the setbacks before it. And I liked this kind of little, diagram here, picture, because it's not a straight path. We know eventually, you can see my mouse moving. Eventually, it will be up here. We know the destiny is going to be glorious, but the road ahead is going to be setbacks. If you recall, a long and thorny road. And there was in Citadel of Faith, the beloved guardian added, it was a long, thorny, and I think he added the word tortuous road. So I have to pull that reference again. But he mentions that this long, thorny, and I believe it was tortuous road that we're going to be undertaking as an American nation, and it's beset with setbacks. So we're going to, we think we're, here, we think we're going to be here, but we're looped around. So we're actually per se further behind than we were. But the eventual outcome will be, if we stay strong, we stay on in the Bible, it says, stay on the straight and narrow. If we stay on course, we stay united, we stay strong, we stay firm, our eventual course will be glorious. Our eventual course will be the spiritual destiny of America. So this is all.
May I say something?
Of course, dear Tesla. Please, go ahead.
There is something come to my mind. So when I see your arrow here, shows that then the mind is to be on the top of the arrow that's in yellow one, and the black one is going up, showing. So when you come to destiny, destiny is, the way I understand it, is to be, it's not about wearing the shoes and going forward. It's about your steps, how we step. And then the destiny for humanity is going to be tomorrow, and for the individual is to be today, because we are living for a day.
Oh, Miss Marian, you're accidentally screen sharing. If you could kindly stop your screen sharing.
No. I'm sorry, okay.
No, Miss Marian, accidentally, if you kindly stop your screen sharing, Miss Marian.
Oh.
Oh, I got it. There you go. No worries. You accidentally hit screen share. No worries. Carry on, dear Tesfaye.
Do you want me to say again, or?
No, carry on. You were saying something.
Yeah, well, earlier, I say about the destiny, what the destiny mean, what I understand, the destiny of America to be in the future was saying, it is not like destiny is most of the time what we are thinking, just wearing and going forward at our shoes, but it is our steps, how we are make our steps to reach our destiny.
Right, right.
And then the destiny for humanity is to be, for mankind, is to be like tomorrow. But for the individual is to be, the destiny is today, because we live for the day. So we need to do everything what we are planning, not for tomorrow, just do it today, whatever you can. That's the way how I understand what destiny means to me.
That's right, right. Yeah, we have to have practical, livable goals every day. I mean, and so what are your goals to accomplish for today? Because you never know what is going to happen tomorrow, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. God, God forbid anything, happens to any one of you wonderful souls. But I don't know. I could be driving home tomorrow from work, and I could be in a car accident. I could be gone, right? I don't know. You don't know what is in our cards, as they say, right? So, but every day you have to live it as to your best. Every day we should live it to our best. And this is the aspect of really, being the best you, that you could ever be. And in the sense, where when we were studying that section, when we were studying rectitude of conduct in part 10, and we were studying chaste and holy life, and studying, freedom from racial prejudices, and all these things about the transformation of the inner life, we were talking about how we have to bring ourselves to account every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so this aspect of bringing ourselves to account every night before I close my eyes to go to bed, I'm saying my prayers and I'm reflecting on my own self. I'm reflecting on my day. I survey my whole day. What did I do? I woke up, I said my prayers, I read the writings, and even if I can't read an inordinate amount, His Holiness Baha'u'llah says, even a line, said with, that purity of heart is greater than 70 years of pious worship. So it's the aspect of, are you really meditating, focusing on the writings day in the morning and evening? And so it's that, did I survey, did I do this? Did I do that? And then I'm reflecting on the quality of my actions throughout the day. And then I reflect on my mind, not just on my heart, on my mind. Because remember, the number 5 on the chaste and holy life, scrolling back, was clean-mindedness. So one of the qualities of chastity in the chaste and holy life was clean-mindedness. So was during the day, how much of my mind, per se, would I say was focused in a degree of work is worship? So it was my mind focused, in a sense, in such a loving attitude, a caring attitude, a Baha'i attitude. If I'm working, in a way that it is service. If I'm at home, is my attitude so loving and caring to my wife, my children, etc., so that it would be like, and if I'm with them, before they're going to sleep, are we having a family devotional with my children, my wife, whatever, right? So every space, how much of my time in period during that day, could I say 85% of my day, I could say, was quality. If you recall, when I had that, I shared with you that dream of that person when I in that video. I don't know if you recall, many sessions back, when I was serving at Bosch, there was a video of a person that had passed away. And it's something that all the days of my life, I'll remember this video. And this video, what it was this person had passed away and then come back. It was a near-death experience. And this person comes back, and this Baha'i said that their entire life was before them. He saw his whole life. And it was only the moments of true value that were clear. Everything else in their life was fuzzy, unimportant. Anything that was unimportant of value was just fuzzy static, like on a TV. And what was so shocking to this person, this wonderful Baha'i, was that it was the most moments that he would never think were important were the important ones. Like when he greeted his neighbor or something, or showed true love, or some moments that he just didn't think was a moment that of value, but that was what per se got the moment. You see what I'm saying? And how many moments can you say in your day are vivid? And you have to add, because in the end, our judgment day will all be coming, and we never know when it's going to be. Riaz-Jan, you have a hand. Please.
Yeah, well, this specific text on slide 58, is
Right.
this text part of the advent of divine justice?
Let me see. Setbacks and delays will occur. It's not per se, it's common themed to Advent and divine justice. And we're talking about setbacks and delays. That is referenced in Advent, as well as Citadel of Faith. So two different texts.
So this is a summary. Or
It's a summary paragraph. Yes, exactly. So
but it's not in one of the published. It's not a published passage.
but no. This is my own words. This is-
Okay,
but
all right.
yeah, but the actual reference of setbacks and delays comes in Advent, but also in Citadel of Faith.
Okay.
But and we've read that several times, talking about the setbacks. And delays.
Okay, all right.
So,
Yeah, thank you.
okay, excellent. If it's not, as to you, Riaz-Jan,
Oh, yeah.
I usually have quotes and the
Right.
reference at the bottom. If it
Yes,
doesn't
yeah,
have that,
yes.
then it's,
I've noticed, yes. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
no problem. The immediate future is dark and oppressive for the American nation. Through the crises prophesied by His Holiness Baha'u'llah, this nation will emerge determined to seize its opportunities, and in conjunction with its sister nations in both the East and West, will solve the gigantic problems of the world. And so this is in reference to the closing paragraphs of 120 through 124. So, and these are just the last words that I wanted to put into this presentation. This American nation will raise its voice in councils of the nations and lay the cornerstone of the universal peace. It will proclaim the unity of mankind and achieve the destiny foretold in the prophecies of Abdul Baha, in which it will adorn the pages of history and become the envy of the world. And so this is an extract from the Beloved Guardian. It was written to the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States, 20th June, 1954. So as you all know, 1954, it was, this was the year that 1954, that was 4th November, 1957, I believe it was the passing of the Guardian. So this a few years before the passing of the garden. But this is, he explains that the Baha'is should not dwell on the dark future, right? So he's not, we all know this dark future is coming. And we're actually as Baha'is, immersed and around, surrounded by this dark future. We're in the future right now, as they say. But we should not dwell on it, because this dwelling on it creates sadness, despair, depression, and inaction. So this is from the Beloved Garden. He has been told that some of their friends are disturbed over reports brought back by the pilgrims concerning the dangers facing America in the future, whenever another world conflagration breaks out. He does not feel that the Baha'is should waste time, this is wasting time, dwelling on the dark side of things. Any intelligent person can understand from the experiences of the last World War and keeping abreast of what modern science has developed in the way of weapons for any future war, that big cities all over the world are going to be in tremendous danger. This is what the Guardian has said to the pilgrims. So this was written on behalf of the Beloved Guardian, Lights of Guidance, page 134. So he says, do not waste time dwelling on the dark side of things. It's literally like a Baha'i who should be the follower of the light is turning away from the light and looking at the shadow of the light, namely the shadow, the darkness. And what a waste of time. It is literally turning his or her back away from the direction of the light. And that is what the Beloved Guardian says. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on the prize. Stay focused. And understandably, the world is growing darker. Because why is the world growing darker? Think about this. The world is growing darker because the light is also getting brighter. The faith is growing brighter. So it is showing that the darkness is darker. So imagine a shadow, the darkness. This is showing the world is in a state of darkness.
Yeah, because of the transition, transition time is always a change, challenging, and too much going on. So the Baha'is must be mature, and then they have to develop and to have to see this light, and they have to be motivated and keep moving. That's the advantage in being Baha'i. Right. But that depends to the individual, how we are nurturing ourselves.
Excellent point. And I love this quote. And I shared it with you, my dear class, the quotes very early on, and I think it was in part one of, if you were with us in part one, where it was a letter from the Beloved Guardian to the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States and Canada. And this is when in the first paragraphs of Advent to Divine Justice, the Beloved Guardian is just praising, he's lauding this incredible National Spiritual Assembly on their achievements and everything, right? And in the prior years, just a few years, in the prior years, he had sent them a letter to this same National Spiritual Assembly and saying, and he lays down the praise on them. And then right after that, he says, I want you to increase your work 1,000-fold. Yes. And you remember that. And 1,000-fold, multiply it 1,000-fold. Now that, my dear friends, should be our mandate too. Every day, how can I multiply my efforts in his name? How can I multiply my endeavors in his name, my services, my sacrifices, my efforts, whatever I'm doing? if I'm doing this or that, what can I do more? Till the last breath I give up. And so, as the Universal House of Justice has proclaimed, make your mark. Make your mark. What are you doing to make your mark? And I've told myself, and from very early on, that the only thing that I every day strive to, we have to strive. And I love that quote from Abdul, strive that your actions, right? And my little ones all have them memorized it. My son is only 9 months, but he'll eventually learn it. But my 2 daughters have memorized this, and every day in the car, they sing this. And so when I think of the word strive, it takes effort, and it's painful, right? And why I wanted to share this is because, this aspect of really striving to do something. And it's that concerted effort. What are we doing daily in our regimes? Remember, the 19-day fasting period, when it comes, it's a reminder to stay focused. That's what it is. It's a straight up reminder to keep us focused on him. But all the 300 and per se, my math is terrible, 350 or so days out of the year, right? What are we doing to stay focused every day? Have you created a regime in your daily habits? Are you, the first thing when you open your eyes, do you sit up, sit appropriately, say your prayers reverently, lovingly? And then the next thing, you do, each time that you turn to him is a devotional. And that is something that before your eyes, when your eyes open and before your eyes close to go to sleep, should be on your lips, the prayers, the writings. And this should be part of our regime. And every day. And this is our spiritual sustenance. And this is something that if we create these habits, it is food for our soul. And because often we have not been doing this as such, our souls per se have been kept, if you do not feed something, it remains in a state of infancy. So you have to feed it, let it grow and be nurtured and be inspired, because every time you nurture your soul, you receive intimations, inspirations. And, these things are, words come to you. When you're teaching, words come to you, inspiration, thoughts. These are things that if you are, per se, connected, your mind, your heart, your soul are focused. These are things I share my thoughts. But going back to the extract from the Beloved Guardian, where it says, do not be troubled, do not be disturbed by the climactic convulsions that are these world-shaking forces. He says, oh God, this is from Abdul, says, oh God, I will no longer be full of anxiety, nor will I let trouble harass me. I will not dwell on the unpleasant things of life. This is from the prayer, oh God, refresh and gladden my spirit. What a beautiful prayer that one is. And it's often recited by people in sadness and depression. Oh God, refresh and gladden my spirit. It's a prayer to bring joy to the heart. I mean, and how many times our lives are beset by sadness, troubles, and problems. So we should not let anxiety dominate us, because what that does is we're looking to the darkness. We should look towards the light, the joys in the world. This is a quote from President George W. Bush, the W one. And so I put this in the presentation because it's a very important quote and powerful quote. This is from President W. He says, there may be some tough times here in America. There may be some tough times here in America. And remember, he was the president that 9/11 happened, if I'm correct. So says there may be some tough times here in America, but this country has gone through tough times before, and we're going to do it again. And that is for sure. We've gone through tough times, and we're going to go through tough times again. And this is from His Holiness Abdul Baha. He says, let this American democracy become glorious in spiritual degrees. Spiritual degrees. This is his hope. This is what His Holiness Abdul Baha wants for the American Baha'is. And it is upon us as American Baha'is to set the standard. And because how many times did Abdul Baha say? It says, let this American nation lead all nations. So we as American Baha'is have to be in the forefront. We have to be at the spearhead of becoming glorious in spiritual degrees. And again, this is from Abdul Baha. And if you remember in part 16, when we studied tests, right? Our dear Roya John presented on tests. It says the same test comes again in a greater degree until it is shown that a former weakness has become a strength and the power to overcome evil has been established. So the same test, whatever test you've been afflicted with, it will come again and again and again and again. It's just like a teacher, right? A teacher gives you a test. You fail it. Oh no, you failed your test. The teacher realizes you failed the test. He gives you the test again. This is how the Lord is. The Lord will continue to, the same test will come again, but in a greater degree next time, until it is shown that a former weakness has become a strength, so that you have learned from that. And now that weakness is now a strength, and you have overcome that test. And that test in this reference is, for example, if it's a problem of your character, or something that is deficient, or any one of these, anything like that. So those are just, that was, and then this is my last and final slide. And I put this here for you, every one of my dear, dear, dear friends. I put this for you. Great experiences are even better when they are shared. Because this has been a great experience on my behalf, being with each one of you. And I just want to thank every one of you because initially when I started the presentations of Advent, it was just me. And then I realized that sharing it with you, it is a greater experience. So that's why I wanted to put that in there. So truly, we are finished Advent of Divine Justice, my dear friends. So congratulations. If you have any questions, I know I didn't even get to questions, but if you have any questions on the last paragraphs or comments or anything before we close it off. And what a pleasure.
I have something.
Please, dear testify, you have the floor. Go for it.
Yeah, no. From all the Advent of Divine Justice, what I have in my, this is from the garden of my heart, from myself personally. I really appreciate the guardian's intelligence, how he put on all these letters and then the phase and everything, you know, the situations and everything, how he put together and how he worked hard for this revelation. But one thing which I have is, you know, the Advent of Divine Justice is according to that, the South African National Spiritual Assembly, they wrote a book about the guardian's life, and then it says no one can summarize his letters, writings, and everything because it's very hard. That is understandable. Now we finish the advent of divine justice, but how much I learn and how much I proceed and how much I deliver this message is really, I don't know, but I have a lot of things in my mind, but which I'm going to put in the future for myself. But one thing which I have in mind is, which I'm going to share it to all of you. I have a question really that when I see the divine prescription, every time it comes like the divine civilization, divine art of living, the advent of divine justice, and then divine, then we have so many of those. Is it to be the standard of living for the Baha'is or for the world, after 1844 because of this revelation? And then on the other side, when I see what is the value and significance of these divine prescriptions every time that they give us from the Guardian, from Abdul Baha, from Baha'u'llah and Shoghi Effendi, what is that to you to understand all these things?
Very good, dear Tesfaye. Let anyone from my class feel free. Riaz John or anyone in my dear class, if you want to answer, feel free. I also have an answer to dear Tesfaye. Anyone want to offer an answer on this, or?
I could start an answer and you can finish it.
Please, Riaz John, go ahead.
The human, of course, man is a creation of God, but the human intellect has its limits. So the human being is not aware of its full potential and its full development. Therefore, the manifestations of God bring additional awareness, knowledge and awareness of the realities, the spiritual realities to which the human being needs to ascend to. So the human intellect will take you up to a certain level of understanding. But beyond that, the human intellect is unable to advance any further to fulfill its potential. But the revelations given by the manifestations of God provide that additional knowledge and awareness so the human being can attain his full spiritual station, which will be the image of God as was intended from the beginning.
Beautifully said, Riaz John, beautifully said. The fullest capacities of an individual can be attained through knowing the manifestation of God in this day and age. And when I say knowing, it's not just knowing about him, it is through the knowledge of him, attaining the knowledge, as well as through loving him. And loving him is through worshiping him. And so, and it's not just through prayers and reciting the verses every morning and eve. It is through that aspect of love, service, teaching, all of these being embedded and infused within your life. This is what it means to be a person of faith. This is what it means to be a person of faith. Because when whether someone calls themselves a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim or a true person of faith, they will attain the true words spoken of the manifestation of God in whichever dispensation at that point in time. They will attain that. Then they will follow his teachings and follow. And so it's if a true lover of Christ will open the Gospels and they will soak it in, and they will be a follower of His Holiness Jesus Christ. A true follower of His Holiness Muhammad will open the Quran, soak in the Quran, and be a follower of the Prophet Muhammad, right? But in this day and age, the latest manifestation of God and all the past dispensations, and we're going to read this in dispensation of Baha'u'llah, all of them have spoken about the twin manifestations of God in this day and age, the Bab and Baha'u'llah. So a true Christian, a true Muslim, a true Hindu, and all of them, if they were true to their faith, they would have seen the prophecies spoken about this day. And how many times we saw this day, and it's so cool. And but you're absolutely right, dear Tesfaye, that the importance, the entire crux, the entire importance of this great letter that we spent the better part of a year and a half going through together is about inner transformation, complete inner transformation, to become a new race of man. That's what it's about. To become a new race of man, so that through our words as well as our deed, that our behaviors, we will be followers of the light and we will be dispelling the darkness. That's what it's about. This is what this text is about, so that this is a book of action. Now, in 2 weeks, we're going to be studying his letter on belief. Dispensation of Baha'u'llah is a letter about, as a Baha'i, what are the foundations of the Baha'i faith? You say, I'm a Baha'i, but what do you believe? Right? Who is this, the Bob? I've heard of Bob. Bob is my neighbor, but what is Bob? You know, you talk about Bob and you call him the blessed Bob. So what is Bob? Do you know a lot about the blessed Bob? So this comes in dispensation of Baha'u'llah, his station, his rank, his title. Where does he fit into this revelation of Baha'u'llah? Then who is Baha'u'llah? His magnificent station, and in the entire range of the history, we'll find out who is Baha'u'llah. Then we find out Abdul Baha. Unbelievable, his station and title. Sirullah, the mystery of God. And we'll find out, especially in this centenary year of the passing of Abdul Baha, we'll get ever closer to the station of who is this incredible figure that we will never understand who Abdul Baha is, but the more we study, the more we read, and the closer that you can get to Abdul Baha and understanding is not through knowledge, it's through service. So the more that you dive into service, you will understand more about who he is. That's the key. But we will study and read about who Abdul Baha is. Then the final grand finale of dispensation of Baha'u'llah is the administrative order. So cool. The beloved guardian at the end of dispensation of Baha'u'llah puts together this administrative order, and he is the great architect of this administrative order. And he puts together and he says, there's this supreme body, Universal House of Justice, that came into being from the Kitab Aqdas. And he says this, the Universal House of Justice, and in the will and testament of Abdul Baha has come into being is the guardianship. And he puts it all into perspective. Now there's this administrative order. Then he ties it, and we tie it all to the National Spiritual Assemblies that came into the will and testament of Abdul Baha. Then we tie it all together to the regional councils that came in recently by our by the Universal House of Justice. Then we tie it all the way to, we tied it with the auxiliary board members that came in during the ministry of the guardian. We tie that also to the auxiliary board, the assistants to the auxiliary board. We tie it then to the also even more recent to the agencies of the cluster, because that is all part of this administrative order. And where do they fit, these agencies of the cluster, in this two-part, namely the rulers and the learned? So this is all going to be so exciting. You're going to learn where does this agencies of the cluster come in this administrative order? They're kind of just like, oh yeah, they're over here, but they have a part, and we'll find it, and it's all there, and it's going to be presented in Dispensation of Baha'u'llah in 2 weeks. So you're going to have a reprieve. But first of all, I cannot say how thankful I am to every one of you for your perseverance, your patience, your love, and your great questions, and your emails. You've been, many of your friends have been emailing me, and so I want to thank every one of you for this opportunity. And so really thank you. Anything else before we have a closing prayer? And then I will email you the date for our when we start dispensation, and then we'll get that one going. Okay. Any other questions? And then we can close it off for tonight. And good to see you, Dennis. Lots of love to Mary. Okay. Oh, I saw a hand.
Can I attend again?
Oh, of course. You guys are my class. Of course. I mean, if you guys want to, in a couple of weeks, I'll send you the email for dispensation and everything. And that one's going to be super exciting. Of course, you guys are most welcome, of course. So I will send you the link and everything. But it will not be the same link as Advent, okay? I will send you a new link that will just be for dispensation, okay? So just letting you know, so don't go logging into Advent link and say, hey, I can't get in, okay? It will be a new link for dispensation, okay?
Yes,
Anyway, the hour is late, so let's have a closing prayer, and then you guys can have a wonderful evening, okay?
Yes, and I just had a little comment. That prayer, God refresh and gladden my spirit. I came across a letter from the House of Justice a few years ago that said that they couldn't find any record of Abdul Baha saying that prayer.
Interesting.
And they think that it might be George Townsend, but they were not sure. But they said it's okay for us to continue to say that prayer, though.
The one that I've seen in reference to George Townsend, Aruna, is the one that, oh God, make me a hollow reed. That's the one that I've seen in reference to George Townsend. But the one, oh God, refresh and gladden my spirit, is in the prayer book itself. And it is, as far as I know, is Abdul Baha. The one that's...
No, I'll try to find that letter from the House of Justice, because it very clearly said, and they must have found this afterwards, after the prayer books were out and so on.
No problem. Send it to me if you find it. But
I find it.
I'm pretty sure I put a...
Yeah, what I've noticed is recently some groups are now saying attributed to Abdul Baha instead of just saying Abdul Baha.
The one that I've seen, and I've seen it also in the book I believe it's called The Mission of Baha'u'llah by George Townsend. and it has his prayer, "Oh Lord, make me a hollow reed." And it's a beautiful prayer. And it's, "Oh Lord, make me a hollow reed." That one, and it's a beautiful prayer. It's just that one comes from George Townsend, and the one that is, "Oh God, refresh and gladden my spirit," that is in the Baha'i prayer book and is attributed to Abdul-Baha, and it's been checked by the research department, and as far as I know, is from Abdul-Baha. And I will do my homework. I will double check it. And as you brought it up, Aruna, I will check it, because often these are coming from selections from the writings of Abdul-Baha, tablets of Abdul-Baha, volume 1 or 2, whatever. And so I'll look that up. And if I can find it, I'll send it to the class, just so, because that's a good question. Excellent. Let's have a closing prayer, and then we'll close it down for tonight, as they say. So it's truly been an awesome experience being with you guys. Thank you so much. And just for the fun of it, dear Dennis, would you like to say a closing prayer?
Okay.
Thank you so much, dear Dennis. Thank you for volunteering, by the way. It's your
Thank you for volunteering me. Okay.
anytime.
Okay. Say, God sufficeth all things, above all things. Nothing in the heavens or the earth but God sufficeth. Verily, he is in himself the knower, the sustainer, the omnipotent, the Bob.
Thank you so much. Thank you, every one of you.
All right.
Thank you so much, Sanjan. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night,
Thank
every
you
one of
all.
you
Good
guys.
night,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Aloha.
Aloha.
All right.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Luann. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you. See you on dispensation.
Look forward to it.
All right. A lot of more questions coming on.